Okay, welcome to this follow-on session from our earlier Artist-Scientist Roundtable, streamed by Ars Electronica at the Starts Methodologies Forum in Linz in Austria earlier today. Just a note to say that we're on a public platform, so please make sure you don't post confidential information in the chat. And also to say we will not be taking any questions during the event as the artists are not present, and we're simply showcasing the artist video journeys here. However, if you'd like to hear more of the discussion between the artists and scientists in the projects, please visit the Ars Electronica YouTube channel where you can watch the roundtable again. To introduce myself, I am Dr. Denise Doyle and I'm the project lead for the Identifying Successful Starts Methodologies project funded through the IRIS scheme, and I'm also reader in digital media at the university. Also here from the project team are Dr. Martin Gashara from the Faculty of Arts and Science and Engineering, and Dr. Richard Glover from the Faculty of Arts, Business and Social Sciences. To begin, I'll briefly give an overview of our research project, which began in 2019 as a collaboration between the Starts Prize, Ars Electronica and the University of Wolverhampton. The project has focused on identifying the collaborative methodologies that are common in Starts projects. To date, we have undertaken over 20 interviews with artists and scientists, which have resulted in a series of case studies of projects from the last 4 years of the prize. We also introduced our project exhibition that, in addition to presenting our early findings, includes the installation of 3 Starts projects: Giulia Tomasello's Future Flora, Jen Keane's This Is Grown, and Pei-Ying Lin's Virophilia. The exhibition is at the Made in Walls Gallery at the university until the end of November 2020. So the Ars Electronica video journey is an entirely new format that has evolved in the midst of rethinking the festival in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. Artists, researchers, and creative producers have been invited to prepare video journeys that provide guided tours into their world, their research, or their creative practice without the audience's physical presence. Today we are presenting 3 Starts video journeys from the speakers at the round table: On a Journey with Alma by designer Giulia Tomasello, Between by the art collective Be Another Lab, and Communication with the Invisible by artist and designer Pei-Ying Lin. So the first video is by Giulia Tomasello, On a Journey with Alma. I first met Giulia in September of 2019 when I interviewed her for our project at the Wellcome Collection in London. Future Flora was the winner of the 2018 Starts Prize for Artistic Exploration and is a project celebrating and embracing women's bodies. Using wearable technologies, it is a harvesting kit designed for women who are taking control of their own bodies as a precious and intimate practice of self-care. Alma is the follow-on project from Future Flora and is a wearable biosensor designed to monitor vaginal fluids. In the video journey, Giulia will guide us through the research and prototype development at the Fraunhofer IZM Text Lab in Berlin, where she's just completed her design residency. And so if you want to start the video is just under 18 minutes.
Okay. Contribute 2 GPs and 2 doctors, but again, quite short on the gynecologists and pharmacists as well.
And this is your pant, and we're going to try it on and fit it and see how it fits.
We turn to the other side, to the other. Here it's better. It's in here. Oh, maybe it's the same. Yes, maybe. I cannot imagine having. Sometimes if I have a jeans button here, it already bothers me. Tell me which fabric.
So I would like to try for this with yellow,
with some cotton. And where should the cotton be? The whole thing?
Should it be double layer, the whole thing?
Sometimes it's difficult to grab what you want.
What is the differences between something with elastane or something only cotton? Or this is the aerophilic ones. Maybe to have it in the skin, this is not good.
Okay.
Right. For what I can see, I'm going to check in the mirror. The silver is more or less 5, but the gold gold.
Was exactly.
Yeah.
Does your colleague even know how the final product has to be?
No, because we never tried this process.
Yeah, and then you the second from that you only have to press start. It's like a salad dressing. Maybe you should steal it. When we should call you? At which point? Yeah, when it's taking, but it should be real.
A lot of meditation.
Japanese tea ceremony. It used to take 2 hours, but now we make matcha in 5 hours.
Okay, so my idea for today is that we go through the analysis and everything that we have. I will briefly explain it in general, so that especially for Taurus, because I think that in that case, we will be much able to understand what can be translated visually, what does it mean intimate care, what does it mean female body, from the people, but also more from an academic point of view. And this is both based on the workshop, but also from literature. So it makes a connection between the two. So the main concepts that goes around the construction of female body and intimate care, which is the culture of purity, the culture of shame and hiding processes, and the language taboo. So the politics of silence, let's say. And so these three things are the most important things and came very big out from the workshop. And it's very related to how the female body is constructed socially. And then we have everything that is more related to education. So how intimate care education is constructed, how sexual education is constructed, and what is the role of more informal education. And by informal, I mean mainly the role of families, peers, everyone that is not considered institution. And as final thing, we have something that I will group in the sense of well-being. One thing is related to the body, and in this case, body well-being comes with body consciousness, and then everything that is more related to the mental well-being that is still related to the body. So there is a connection between mind or mental well-being and the body. And so these are the four main groups that we have here. If we go in detail in this, so everything that is here came from the workshop, and this is why we have the quote. But I have reference to say, okay, this is also said in the literature. So, but the main thing here is that these insights can explain a bit what happened, generally speaking, when we want to touch the topic of intimate care, female bodies, sexual education, and everything like menstruation education and everything as that. The first thing, I wanted to understand what is the meaning of intimate care. If we go to the workshop or we go speaking with females and they have to give an idea of or a meaning of intimate care, what they will say. And the first thing that came out very strong from the workshop is that there is a strong connection between intimate care and sexual health. And the reason why, first of all, it seems stupid, but it's very important, is because in the female body, and not only, of course, they share the same space, meaning the vagina. So if my intimate care and my sexual relationships share the same space, of course, I can see an immediate connection between the two. From the female point of view, is more about if because sex can lead to infections and diseases, and because sex is not so well, we're not so well educated regarding sex. When I have more sex, I need to have more care of my hygiene and my intimate care. From the social point of view, when there is a taboo and stigma, it means that because you are having sex relationships, you are dirty and you need to clean yourself, and not only from the physical point of view, but also more from the soul, spiritual point of view.
It is always a liberating feeling to put word or phrase or term or an experience to it. This is my stance, and I now feel very comfortable taking it. I have looked at it, and with clothing it can be the same, and it's not rigid at all. It can change, right? Because your body changes throughout your life, but to be in this contact with your body over the discussion of being there.
Que o homem não te define, sua casa não
source of information. This is the first one where you see discharge of any type. And then there is this connection in the survey was kind of clear. It's true that we connect intimate care with sexual health, but there is a good amount of people that relates infections also to the fabric of the underwear or to the color.
That's the yellow.
Yeah, this is the yellow actually. This is yellow. What do you think? Not nice.
Very bright.
Very bright. I know. Yeah, we are just gender inclusive.
One thing that it's like a pocket, it looks already like a pocket. So you could have it like a pocket to slide in, and maybe even it would have to snap or only at a very specific point, and it could sit in there, and then you could pull it out from, you kind of have a pocket here, you pull the whole thing out.
So these are the three parts we have. The sensor part, the conductive track, and the wisp mat. It's good, right?
Okay, so like this is not touching the glass.
Yes. Now we see. So this is the same with this another, and then we are off on with like 300 meters, like you can't see which one in the squats, but after this exact structure. It's super sensitive, it creates energy, because they won't, like it's when it will work with this kind of antenna, but in the end we need to have like a coin antenna or like an antenna.
But that's what I think, because if we have it like this, we need a stable connection for the antenna, I think.
But you could put more pins here, basically, and then have a 3D printed thing on top, basically, over it. So you have like, you connect it to it and press it in. So you have like this kind of, just stick it in and can snap it out again.
Ta-da!
That's where I think where you switch from fashion to business, then it's a good idea to change the language. Where like we did not just have to have beautiful visuals, but we also had to have words and other sort of like a structure that they could go to the document and understand what it is.
People who invest in fashion are not people who invest purely for the money. They also want the joy and the beauty of that. It has to have a soul.
Yes.
So that's always really important in the garment industry. You kind of have a soul, because also then it creates desirability. I mean, Giulia Tomasello, she's the autonomous person for it. She can create a soul.
I'm very happy. And I'm very happy that you can be part of girls and everybody. It's amazing, like I think. So we had a dinner with all the team at home, and it was amazing to see how from different perspectives everybody has something to add that was just like we were all comfortable, I felt. But we were lucky maybe enough to find somebody that had the right spirit to approach this project. We got also lucky to have like a male that is sensitive enough, like Taurus, Tommy and Rio are already, and somehow we knew this is why we pulled them in. And also with Robin, like he has a lot from also his perspective as a man to share, which is amazing because again, it's rare. as if it's rare from a female to be so open to talk about as you two are. We met and we are. And Silke as well has a word inside to share all the time. So good job, everyone. We are really fast, I feel, and energetic. There's a lot of...
and I feel from the midterm, we had a lot of conversations also with the Fraunhofer team. And we started sharing a lot from that point on.
True.
And that created,
actually,
I could see that. Everybody wants to be part of the conversation now.
Yeah.
Everyone has something to say here. So that's amazing.
This is why this book, I think it's important, because then you have the material, it's everything in there, and you can say, okay, here. And when they start to read it, they will say, whoa, there's a word behind that. That is gonna be huge. Ha ha ha.
Okay, and the second video is entitled Between by Be Another Lab. Be Another Lab is an interdisciplinary collective formed in 2012-13. I first met 4 members of the collective in October 2019 at their lab in Barcelona. I had been fascinated by the empathy VR work that they'd been producing through their project, Library of Ourselves, which received an honorary mention at the Starts Prize in 2017. After meeting members of the collective face-to-face and interviewing 4 more members remotely during lockdown, I became equally fascinated by their values as a global collective. In their words, as a collective practice, Be Another Lab exists in the spaces between disciplines, communities, geographies, and methodologies, distributed but interdependent. The tour in this video journey presents a meditation on the uncertainties and sensitivities inherent in transdisciplinary collaboration. And this video is 22 minutes long.
Almost everybody likes to share personal stories. Listening in another space. Creating freedom and connection. Intimate. Sensitive and uncertain. Finding comfort. Feeling my body. Touch on my skin. Unlimited experiences into another life. Conscious about myself. Curious toward the other. Exploring different realities and shifting between worlds. In this moment and space, reflecting and understanding. Almost symbiote. Realizing how different we are, and yet so the same. I hope to share this experience with you. I'll see you soon. I've often had the thought of finding a double of myself, a duplicate. I imagine finding him, me, from a perspective that is unusual to the way I regularly see myself. Perhaps because I find myself lost between the first and the third person. I lately see my most vulnerable space more often. My skin. I guess it's in between where my skin lies. It's both the most vulnerable and the most visible. My soft bounds, my living scars, my anxiety, my care. And how can I learn to listen to my skin? What types of dialogue are we neglecting? When believing in the observer and the observed, in the normative world and an idea of the self separated from it, what world are we constructing? For me, the beauty of our collective lies in knitting spaces for dialogue. For a dialogue that goes beyond the verbal, where we melt into each other, observer and observed, not with answers, but in listening to and with our skins. And I find this important, but it's not easy. We are not very good at it, maybe. Or it's just not compatible with the pace of our world. I work in science, and there it's different. I don't often find space for the words of the skin nor the dance of the voice. And by working there, I'm sometimes afraid of feeding and justifying a way of knowing that I find obsolete for transformation. Not to say that science and validated knowledge are not important, but we seem to insist in disregarding affect. Congruency is difficult in our uncertain world. With this uncertainty, academia is settling. An opportunity for me to stay in Europe, for example. I guess living in between perspectives, between academia and outside of it, between borders, ourselves, and our skins, it's easy to not have clarity and to walk in a very loose ground. And having found in mutual touch a space of resistance, a pillar of our common work, who knows what lies ahead with this pandemic?
Quando a mamãe estava contando a história da água, a chuva esqueceu de falar de nada.
Between what it is and what it could be, I drift. What if? What it would be like if care and love is sprouted everywhere, in everyone.
Papai!
If everyone, without distinction, could be considered a fundamental part of the notion of we.
La pequeña Marina va al parque. Y el corderito.
Papá, por favor, as letras de água.
Sí, mi amor.
Could this world be built? You know, the feeling of giving something up to offer to someone? What if this someone is anyone?
Ela tá muito cheirosa, essa plantinha. Aquela lá também quer.
Vem, pega aqui.
Tá bom.
Com muito cuidado.
Eu sou a mamãe dos bichinhos.
É, você é a mamãe dos bichinhos.
Could it be that simple? Maybe just the effort of trying so, step into each other's shoes, is all we need to make it be.
E aí a avó ficou muito cheia.
É verdade? Muito cheia.
Maybe we're like babies, craving to feel and share belongingness, craving to respond through love. But as a mature society, we have a responsibility that urges to care and take care of all. To cultivate a world in which it's possible to sing like uma alemã.
Talking about magic. So magic is this feeling of being connected to everything, this idea of having your eyes open to look for the signals, discovering the mystery, and then you see things. Basically, you see relationship between ideas, between physical stuff, you know. So magic is this motion, this moment in a space and time that in which you feel really connected. Say the flow, say this moment of light in your heart and in your mind.
Estando en el pajar empiezo a escarbar, pues me acuerdo de la idea de la aguja, entonces empiezo a escarbar y de repente ahí estaba una aguja debajo de 1 metro de paja en un sitio totalmente random que no tenía ni idea. Y lo interesante es que de alguna forma encontré esta sensación de alguna forma de incertidumbre, pero en el sentido de que no sabía si lo que pasaba era un invento de mi imaginación, si era real, si era lo correcto, si era lo que tenía que estar destinado a pasar. Y era un momento, digamos, de indecisión, ¿no? De donde algo no correspondía, pero al mismo tiempo todo correspondía. Y entonces me cuentan que posiblemente lo que pasó es que la aguja no estaba ahí, y que lo que yo hice fue que yo materialicé la aguja, que yo creé materia de la nada, que todos tenemos ese poder, que todos tenemos esa capacidad. Who should I listen to? To my mamá, to my papá, to my amigos. Should I listen to my brain, to my heart? You should listen to Chueco. Chueco is the part of your brain, of your thinking, that doesn't know what it's doing. That's the Chueco. Comes from the heart, from the soul, spirit, crazy, de salsa, de cumbia.
My creative practice consists of writing. Writing in isolation and failing. This is not uncertainty, but its qualities of the unknown and of open-endedness and the sense of hope that might lie in there. This is precariousness with its implication of being dangerously likely to fall or collapse. And uncertainty never scared me. My creative practice consists of dialogue, the conversational exchange between people, the literary forms that depict these transfers. Keine neue Welt ohne neue Sprache. No new world without a new language. It's one of Ingeborg Bachmann's most quoted sayings. New words are needed for any endeavor, be that marketing or world-changing. Words are not my allies, and my dialogues are imagined, fragmented, and short. My creative practice consists of voice. Voice is a materiality, an embodied practice, as well as a metaphor for representation. Ideas about voice, about language and speech are like everything, not universal, nor natural, but culturally and historically specific. These ideas have repercussions for collective life, how voices are heard and recognized. Amanda Weidman talks about ideologies of voice. Voice ideology in Euro-America associates voice with interiority, truth, and self-expression. Keine neue Welt ohne neue Sprache.
I moved to Switzerland a few days before Europe was going into a complete lockdown. I faced a strange isolation, a mixture of safety and distanciation from my loved one, a shrinking of my social circle. In Switzerland, where the virus is neutral, people haven't felt the pain and anxiety other places have. As I strolled through the woods surrounding my apartment, I reflected on the new pace that was forced upon us. I've been wondering how my safety in the distance could be useful to others, how practicing restraint in my practice and my thinking, finding the right distance to be able to recognize the other and maintain our humanity. In the unfolding meltdown of the fabric of society, how we think as individuals, how we think as a species, will need to be adjusted. No amount of privilege, no amount of poetic justice will make any of this right. Not even the heroes and artists of the fourth turning.
Perspective of someone who works on conflict, both intra and interstate conflict, in addition to being part of another lab, as someone who happens to be at the UN, I also think about conflict fragmentations. Now, at the same time, you have growing mistrust in governments and any form of authority. You have the spread of mis and disinformation. In the midst of all of that, one of the things that I'm most inspired by in philosophy and systems thinking is the phenomenon of emergence. What we're trying to do as Be Another Lab is find ways to create space for others to come in and occupy space when it comes to whatever access we have. How do we use those entry points that we have to create space for others to come in and occupy and fill in unique, artistic, playful, but also politically engaged ways that some type of transformation or the beginning of some type of transformation can happen? Then allowing, by creating those openings and by creating that space and by engaging in a deep listening exercise, allow for a range, a constellation of factors to come together, to make space for a type of emergence. In general, I think we have to think at an ecological level, that whole of ecological approach. You have humans and human behaviors, you have machines and machine behaviors, and you have systems and system behaviors. And how can we observe and analyze and understand where all those things are, how they're working together, and think about what things we can tinker with here and there in order to nudge things in a different direction. By ensuring that we create a space for listening, we can get others to listen as well. Emergence, deep listening, creativity, and thinking at the level of machines, humans, and systems, and how they intersect.
What is in the in-between? Confluences between rivers on sea, tension between tectonic plates, misunderstandings and understandings between you and me, space between stars, between atomized, specialized, isolated, disenfranchised, alienated. Uncertainty fills every space between the discrete and certain, between a beginning and an end, life and death. Yet who we each are is defined by the spaces between us. Vulnerability, for sure, but also, maybe, possibility. How do we shift the spaces between? Not to collapse them, but to expand and nurture that uncertainty into possibility. Trust in different ways of knowing, in different ways of listening. Where do we learn how to listen? More than silence, listening requires space, carving it, holding it. Like any space, when there is a sound, it reverberates, it resonates and echoes back. I've learned that listening requires not just the attention on an external source, but also an awareness of its resonances within oneself. How does this resonate with my own contexts, experiences, knowledge, concepts, memories, emotions? And in echoing back these resonances, we find another step in listening, another step into reconfiguring our constellations of knowledge, practice, and affect, expanding what is possible between.
Y cuando esto me lo dijo un amigo, ¿no? Pensé, vale, pues es que tienes toda la razón, porque así es la vida, ¿no? Cuando el trabajo, las relaciones, cuando estás en un momento donde todo puede pasar, o bueno, o malo, o regular, pues precisamente en ese momento es donde tenemos la posibilidad de ser creadores, ¿no? Creadores de agujas como momentos, como emociones, como posibilidades. Entonces hay veces pasa que no sabes que lo que pasa es lo que tiene que pasar. Pero una vez abres los ojos y lo ves, pues ya no tienes la indecisión.
And the final video is by Pei-Ying entitled Communication with the Invisible. As part of our Starts Methodologies project exhibition, we installed a piece of work by Pei-Ying. Virophilia investigates the possibilities of human-virus encounters and was awarded an honorary mention in the 2020 Starts Prize. It seemed very fitting to showcase this work given the immense global impact that COVID-19 is having. In Pei-Ying's video journey, she explores the concept of uncertainty in the process of creation in her two projects, Tame is to Tame and Virophilia. In her words, uncertainty is everywhere. It is what we experience when facing the unknown, but also when trying to communicate or negotiate with the invisible. The journey includes a dialogue with her scientific collaborator, Miranda de Graaf. And please note that the sound on this video is really quite quiet, so you might want to turn up your volume to enjoy it best. So this is 25 minutes long.
Beginning of the life on Earth. Dear viruses, my ancestral siblings, I can't quite remember when our first encounter happened. Perhaps in my mother's womb, perhaps at the very moment of my existence. From the studies of history, I could guess you probably came into existence following a chain of accidents. Well, so am I. When the machinery of replication was put together in the molecular cascade, the branch that led to my existence emerged. That was our first point of separation, that we have departed in our own ways, but remained our molecular connections. You and me and many others. It is said that you connect me with other species. You circulate the genetic data between us and other living beings. If the world is without sex, you will provide our sex. If the world is without variations, you will create variations. We depend on each other. And I not only grew from you, you have made a part of me. You have made me. You are constantly changing me.
What I think I noticed, or what I think I saw differently from how you see it, is that as a scientist researching viruses, I really try to figure out how these viruses work and how you can protect people from these viruses and perhaps how to cure people from viruses. And I think your approach has been quite different in that you are trying to find a way that you can live with these viruses. But also a thing we both want to do is to also educate other people about viruses. Well, I think when I work with viruses and do research, I have freedom in the aspects of the virus that I research, but not a artistic freedom in how I interpret it, of how I look at the results, because I have to be very precise and it has to be correct. And I think with art you have a little bit more freedom and also to use your imaginations, which is something I cannot always do, of course, when you research.
So I think it's very, very important to acknowledge that there is a risk of living, and that every move that we make in our life has some risk in itself. So every relationship that we start, every relationship that we end is risk of living. But also we have this risk of getting a disease, getting a virus. And why to me this is so important to acknowledge that there is this risk of living, that is because if you look at all kinds of technologies, like surveillance technology, AI, but also all kinds of biotechnological innovations, technologies, it appears that all these technologies are kind of aimed at reducing the risk of living. For instance, if you look how biotechnology is responding to this COVID-19 crisis, then you can clearly see that they try to reduce risk as much as possible. Of course, I understand that and I feel that is important. But at the same time, I think it's important that we understand that our life is always at risk, and not so much at risk of dying, but of risk of living. And it's important that we acknowledge that even in the face of this horrible pandemic, a horrible COVID crisis, that we still feel that taking a risk, whatever kind of risk we take, is important for us as human beings. What we are as human beings is taking the risk of living. If we hadn't done that, we should still be in caves, smashing our heads in with stone axes.
And I grew hand in hand with you, my ancestor, my friend, my enemy, my ally. It was the pandemic that brought my attention to you. Never realized your existence in such a prominent way, though I've encountered you and your folks several times in the past. Sickness is often your disguise, disguising the mechanical mechanism of your replication. I am a medium for you to emphasize forgivable errors during your replication of your genome. You provoke me. You provoke all the cells on me so that I react to you. In fact, you are so rational that it brings out the irrationality of me. Our encounter has been manifested in my consciousness through the bodily experience. My understanding of you, your image, is merely your reflection on my physicality. My immune system, my consciousness, my fear, my death, and my prosperity. Even though until very recently, I learned that you are with me however I am. You gave me life. You live with me. You live with my biological companions. You are my companion. Please, do not replicate anymore. I have suffered. I've been suffering because of you. You plunder on my prosperity to gain your prosperity. Well, I support your existence, and you support mine. But you are also a threat to me, and so am I to you. Who are you, really? The idea of you is hard to grasp for me. If there's a trillion of you that construct our knowledge of you, your existence, then you are not an individual, but something more. Sort of responding to what you were saying, I guess we spent a lot of time that you were explaining to me what kind of research they are available and what kind of new knowledge that we actually know about, and also trying to correct me whenever if I misunderstood something.
Yeah, yes, and I think that's really nice when you collaborate on the level that we did, that I can also explain things to you or maybe correct things that are not correct. But the really nice thing that you can do is to put another layer on top, another way of thinking about the virus. But also normally science, when we publish in scientific journals, the story can be quite dry, and by making nice art objects and games, it's much easier and nicer for the general public to understand the research. Yeah, so we made the arrays within a project called Virgo and also within VIO. So there's actually small arrays that contain little parts of the viruses. And then what we do is we put serum from people on those arrays, and then we can see if they have responses against certain norovirus types. So if we see a response, we know that they probably have been infected by that type of norovirus.
You are invisible. Do you exist where my eyes cannot see? Do you exist in a way I cannot touch? But how do I sense you then? How do I sense your existence? Can I touch you? Is that possible? Am I touching you right now? Am I breathing you in? How do I hunt for you? Touch, breathe, swallow, pierce, dissolve, disguise, replicate, combine, explodes, dispense. Touch, touch lightly, touch in hand wash, touch with gloves, touch with distance. Don't touch. Transfer touch, indirect touch, sufficient touch, sterile touch. Breathe. Hold your breath. Breathe with a mask. Breathe with ventilators. Breathe only if there's a distance. Don't breathe. Breathe others' breath. Breathe of invisible particles. Breathe the void. Swallow. Swallow a mouthful. Swallow without noticing. Swallow with fear. Do not swallow. Stay hungry. Your invisibility brings me the maximum imagination, imagining the possible ways of our encounters. Penetrative fear, fear for penetration. As if you're going to conquer the world I live in, as if you're going to occupy the space I move, as if you will lay yourself on every bit of surface within my reach, as if you will enter every single cell of me, of my family, of my friends, as if you will use us as your vehicle for mobility, as if you would take us hostage, as if you would deteriorate my body, my life, my society. In the face of death.
Viruses are not something that do not belong to us, but viruses have been with us as long as we exist as human beings. And the questions that both projects ask, I think, is how to live with the risk of a virus, how to approach a virus. Do we have to approach it as an enemy, or do we have to welcome it as a friend? Now, if I first look at the project, Tame is to Tame, then I feel that the project is very much about trying to incorporate the virus into our life in such a way that we domesticate it, like as we have domesticated dogs. That means that the hierarchical relationship that we kind of have with viruses are something that we need to fight, is still in place in this project. Although, if you think a bit on a deeper level about your project and how your project is being played out in all the things that, all the events that you stage, then of course you also acknowledge that a virus is so wild that probably to tame it means also that we have to kind of taming ourselves, or that we have to accommodate or adjust ourselves to this wild virus. That makes already the relationship that we have with the virus a bit more non-hierarchical. It is an understanding and an acknowledging of the fact that we have to acknowledge the wildness, so to speak, of the virus in order to kind of cope with it. If you see it as a challenge to think about your own relationship with a virus that could be totally different than this tamer, this tamer and something that is being tamed relationship, so tamer and virus relationship, then it provokes a lot of questions that I think are important, but that I think are somehow better played out in Virophilia. And that, of course, has to do that Virophilia is much more a project about how to accommodate, how to find a relationship with a virus in such a way that the virus is not so much something that needs to be tamed, but that a virus is something that needs to be incorporated in a very literal and literal sense, but in a very literal sense by eating it. That is that in this project, me as a beholder is exposed to the virus in a very intimate way. I take it into my own body by eating it. And I allow the virus to do to perform, so to speak, its wildness without me trying to tame it.
Fear for death is not an universal concept on Earth. Birth of you, my dear viruses, often come with death, death of me, death of the cells. But I'm very well aware that death does not always come with fear. The risk of death teaches me the respect of you, forces me to look for alternative opportunities, pushes me to evolve. You, my muse, my biological driving force. Your threat is my opportunity. Your collaboration is my fundamental elixir.
What I really like about Virophilia, that is the aspect that, anyway, to me as a beholder, it appears that you're trying to overcome this anthropocentric approach of viruses, because you're not saying, okay, I have to guard myself, defend myself, or I have to tame them in such a way that their wildness is not interfering with my humanness. But by eating a virus and by taking it into my body and by allowing the virus to, as I said before, to play out its wildness actually in my body, is of course trying to understand what it would mean to have this non-anthropocentric relationship with a virus. And even if this is only art, so to speak, it still challenged me to think about what does it mean if I see a virus, if I see all the microbes that are living on and in my body, not as something apart from me, but as something that is part of my identity, something that defines me as who I am, something also that makes me feel that my identity is not something fixed, but something very fluid, something in a kind of constant exchange with all the other living entities living in and outside my body. And as such, it could be a kind of also intellectual starting point, your artwork, a kind of an intellectual start work of what would it mean if I'm not only thinking of a virus as something that belongs to me and that I should welcome as part of my identity, but if I think of all the non-human entities, so to speak, around me, that I should welcome as part of my identity.
If you want to go for the hunt, depends what kind of viruses are you hunting for?
Say if I want to hunt as many varieties of viruses. So more of the varieties instead of the amount of it.
I don't know actually where the best place would be. I think also, again, viruses in animals and also in, of course, wastewater, you have a lot of viruses, not only animal viruses, but also bacteriophages are, of course, a large part of the viruses around us, plant viruses. So I think you can go on the hunt in a lot of different places.
Like a swamp, maybe?
Maybe also a swamp, but if you want to have a more human viruses, then probably you're better off maybe with sewage.
This time, let me be the initiative one. A collaboration would be fine, and maybe an afternoon tea. Although I can never offer you a biscuit, I can, however, provide a habitat you enjoy. A rich, fertile habitat for all I can offer. Let me explore you with enjoyment. Let me see you with the lenses of pleasure. Let me turn your shortcomings into your strength. I will see through your eyes to examine the world we live in. I will use your ability for connections to weave a resilient network without living beings. I will embrace the mutations you created. I will admire your sophistication that grew from simplicity. I will respect your lack of self-replication and fulfill your parasitical needs. I will work hard to override my anthropocentric view of you as merely pathogens. I will see you as my equal and use you as a mirror to reflect the absurdity of me. You are my mentor, my friend, my sibling. You created me.
So I hope you enjoyed watching the video journeys and enjoyed the insights into these artists' worlds. This time last year, our project team were at the 2019 Ars Electronica Festival. This year, because of the global pandemic, Ars Electronica decided for the first time in its 41 years history to make the 2020 festival distributed across the world. Yesterday, they sent this video to the partners entitled 120 Chairs for 120 Partners at the Ars Electronica Festival 2020. So it seems a fitting end to our session to play it to you today. So many thanks for watching. Okay, Claire.
We are here on the main square of Linz, the city that has a long tradition in transformation. A transformation that is coined by industry, by other circumstances, but also by the culture and by the arts. And what you see around me is a circle of 120 chairs from the wonderful Baroque monastery of St. Florian. Each chair is representing the absence of the guests that we are normally expecting. But in times like that, where nobody is able to travel, this is a symbol for the beautiful transformation the international crowd is doing normally in this 1 week when Ars Electronica is on in the city of Linz.
Welcome everybody to Ars Electronica 2020 in
Silicon Valley,
Linz,
Oslo,
Belgrade, Montreal,
Tequila, Riga,
Barcelona,
Auckland, Osaka,
Seoul,
Australia,
Yamaguchi,
Adriatic Sea, Porto, New York, Athens, Moscow, Paris,
Taipei, London,
Buenos Aires,
New York City,
Berlin, Jakarta, Johannesburg,
we see you there.